Alright, this is number 8 from the logarithms review. So, right now we have log base 1/6 of x squared plus x plus the log base 1/6 of x squared minus x equals -1. Well, we have two different logs on this side, but we know we can use our log property that says, it's our product of logs that says log of a times b. It can be rewritten as log of a plus log of b. This also says if I have two logs that I'm adding together, I can rewrite them as multiplication. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create these and make them one giant log. So since it's addition in the middle, that means I can rewrite them as the product of those logs. So I'm going to have log base 1/6 of x squared plus x times x squared minus x. And then all of that's going to be equal to -1. Well, now that I have this, I can rewrite this log. So now I have log equals some number. Remember, anytime we have a log base something equals to a number, we can just convert it to exponential form. So I can convert this by having 1/6 to the -1st equals x squared plus x times x squared minus x. Okay, well I know 1/6 to the -1st is just 6. And then if I actually FOIL these out, I'd get x to the 4th. And then the inner terms would cancel out and we get minus x squared. So then I can rewrite this and subtract the 6 over. I get 0 equals x to the 4th minus x squared minus 6. So then I can just factor this out. And since this is technically a quadratic, if we want to think about it, it's technically x squared minus x squared minus 6 equals 0. So I can factor it out like I would any quadratic, except instead of an x, I'd have an x squared. And I have to think what multiplies up to -6 but adds up to -1. Well, that is -3 and +2. So I get x squared minus 3 and x squared plus 2. So then when I get to here, I get x squared equals 3, and then x squared equals -2. Well, since a squared number can never be negative, I know this has no real solutions. They're both imaginary. So I go about solving this. So I take the square root, and whenever I take the square root, I get the plus or minus. Now remember, anytime I get an answer from a logarithm, I have to plug it in to make sure it still works, because we have the domain issue and I can only plug in numbers that are greater than 0. So when I look at this, think back to my original equation, which was log base 1/6 of x squared plus x plus the log base 1/6 of the quantity x squared minus x equals -1. I have to make sure I don't run into any problems when I plug in this answer. And I have two answers. So I have to think of the square root of 3. If I plug in the square root of 3, here it would be fine. I still end up with positive numbers. Here I get the square root of 3 squared minus the square root of 3, which is 3 minus the square root of 3. So that's still a positive number, so I'm still okay. So I know the answer, x is equal to the square root of 3, works. But then I still have to check the negative square root of 3. Well, if I plug in negative square root of 3 here, I get negative square root of 3 squared plus the negative square root of 3. Well, this ends up being 3. The square root of 3 is less than 3, so we're still okay here. And over here, if I plug it in, I still end up with negative square root of 3 squared minus negative square root of 3. Well, that ends up becoming a positive, so my answer is fine there. So my answer to both of these, x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3.